bum bum bum. Ba-dum bum 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 bum. Ba-dum ba-dum bum. Yes, yes. Okay, yeah, that'll do. We'll get the notes up. Uh-huh. Yeah, just like that. Uh-huh. Now, yes, yes. Hello. Hello in the audience tonight. Rora and Senmath. Hello. Yeah, like that. We'll take the loading hop. Hey there, hi there. Hyde here. It's been a week. I am back. Hello, Sen. I know it's strange to see me, right? It's been a busy week. I can tell you that much. You probably don't want to hear about my busy week, so we're not going to talk about my busy week. All I'm going to say is I've got things in the works, and yeah, things are definitely in the works. Yeah. And that's just what I've been doing. Oh, that was a terrible shot. That's just what I've been doing for streaming content. I need to turn my volume off on me because I'm getting an echo about 5 seconds late. Yeah, that'll do just fine. Saw you join the LOL call. Yes, I did. I assume... Well, I shouldn't assume, right? Black heart, empty heart, dead heart. Yeah, just like my heart, black and empty. Yeah. I assume that, well, yeah, I probably shouldn't. But most people who probably watch me probably, watched that stream that you are referring to. Grace the Gabi over on, twitch.tv. I think her number is 414. So, yeah, that was a good stream. It was her affiliate and birthday stream, I guess. Yeah. Long-time supporter of a lot of people. So go check her out, or any of the fine people in my chat tonight. If you are watching the VOD and you are not a member of the current chat, yeah, go check out anyone in my stream chat. They're all streamers for the most part, and they're all pretty good. They've all got their own niches. Yeah. Senmath here, of course. He streams over on Twitch TV too. Yes. It's a rarity to find anyone on YouTube, so I'm sure the community is much smaller here. This is a terrible shot, by the way. There's no way it's gonna work, is it? Maybe if I get really lucky, this will work. No, yeah, That went about worse than I expected. Yeah, the Dino Girl, Aurora. There are very few of us that I know about who are streaming on YouTube. It seems to be like that's not the play. Like, do not stream on YouTube, apparently. I don't know. I don't know if I buy that. I think there are different audiences based on the different platforms, right? You can build different types of communities based on where you stream at, right? Yeah. Like, there are a lot of cultural differences between streamers on YouTube and streamers on Twitch. Back in my early days of stream watching, Twitch wasn't even a thing. YouTube was the only platform, and it still pretty much is the only platform today with any kind of competition, right? VTubers from YouTube are an endangered specimen. Yeah. I don't know. Like, all of Hololive remains on YouTube, right? There are a few who have Twitch channels. I know Ame had a Twitch channel. I know Pekara streamed on Twitch for, I don't know, a couple times. Yeah. So I don't think they're really that endangered. Yeah, I think it's just mostly very specific people or companies tend to prefer one over the other. In most cases, I think, you know, most people are probably restreaming or streaming on both. Alternating. I don't know. I've always just been a YouTube person. I do have a Twitch. I am never going to stream on it. Watch me say never and then end up streaming on it someday for some really ridiculous reason. Indie specimens. Oh yes, indies. I don't think there are too many indies who stream exclusively on YouTube. I think mostly it's flesh streamers. The 3D type that are streaming on YouTube. Which is fine, you know, like, there are advantages to it. There's better discoverability for, I think, flesh streamers, as we will call them. I think YouTube is better to do multiple things, like stream videos and shorts. That was the idea behind why I started here. Like, I think it is a little bit better for people who plan to make videos or plan to do covers and have those recorded and available on their channels. I think there are pros and cons that you can consider. I don't think one or the other is necessarily better. In my case, YouTube is the way to go. That was awful. Because I do a lot of recorded content, right? Follow several 1 to 2 view. Yeah, there are some indies on YouTube. I know a few. Oh, I know a few. They do exist. They're probably harder to find if I had to guess what the problem there is. YouTube does recommend them from time to time. I found one once. That's sad. I haven't been recommended any in a while. But then again, I'm not really recommended live content too much. Probably because I'm not viewing too much live content on YouTube. It seems to be something more like YouTube will recommend things similar to what you watch. And I don't know how the algorithms work. I wish I did. I really do. If I knew how they worked, I would probably be more successful on this platform. But I'm trying to figure it out slowly and surely. That's what the whole shorts thing is, really. I saw that shorts were, well, they're a lot quicker to make than a long-form video, so I can experiment with them a lot easier. Yeah. They get a lot more exposure, too. People are much more willing to give you 15 seconds of their day than they are to give you, I don't know, half an hour? 15 minutes? I've been experimenting lately with 5-minute long-form videos. Roughly 5 minutes. That's very much on purpose. Everything that I'm doing is experimental in some sense. There's not really anyone offering too much guidance on how to be a YouTube VTuber, or PNGtuber in my case. I don't think I'm going to change being a PNGtuber for a live 2D model anytime soon. I just don't see a need for it. I kind of like what I have going on, and I like being able to edit it on the fly. Yeah, I have a lot more freedom that I can just mess around with by myself. So, as you saw there, I am working on a new persona. It's been taking me quite strange places on YouTube as of late. Some of you may remember, sometimes YouTube is weird, you never know how it works. Yeah, I'm gonna say most of the time YouTube is weird, and I just never know how it works. I wish I knew how it worked better. but I have been watching strange videos on YouTube to prepare for my new persona. Maybe we'll talk about that. Maybe I'll just save that for later. He needs a bit more time to bake. Like, not only his persona, but also his model. Nah, sorry. Sometimes I recommend me videos with 100 or less views of topics I never search. I assume that says never, because the heart's in the way. Brilliant design, by the way. Yes, it did say never. Usually from games I don't know. I have to imagine that they're using keywords like tags or hashtags in the videos themselves. So those are assigned by the content creator who uploads the video, right? So if you watch a video with something that says VTuber in the tags or in the description hashtags, then you're probably more likely to be recommended other people who put VTuber in their content. It doesn't have to be like the same type of VTuber. It might be wildly different kind of content. Like, as far as I go, as a chupa of sorts, um, my content is very different from, say, Hololive content, right? I don't sing, I don't dance, but we're all chubas as far as Wikipedia or YouTube is concerned. I can't believe I hit that 2-ball. That was awful. So we all get lumped together by the algorithm, as long as we're using those tags. I never do, by the way. Like, unless I'm playing a game based on VTubers, I never use the VTuber tag. I don't think it's good for discoverability. There are a lot of people out there who still don't know what a VTuber is. So I think you're losing out on the discoverability by not using more generalized hashtags or terms. Getting a bit in the weeds, huh? But that's okay. Sometimes that's okay. You can dance. You can dance if you want to. You can leave your friends behind. Because if they don't dance, and if they won't dance, they're no friends of mine. Dorashuk, Men Without Hats. Great song, great band. One of my absolute favorites. In fact, bands. Also another terrible shot. A lot of people think they're a one-hit wonder, Men Without Hats. But as far as synth pop goes, like, that style is such a classic. You really can't imitate it. I know, because I've heard pretty much all the synth pop out there. You can quote me on that. Do not quote me on that. That's a lie. Blatant misinformation. I've listened to a lot of synth pop, and I love synth pop as a genre. It's a very wide genre, though. Much like VTuber is very wide as a genre of content. Not very good for surfacing the kind of thing you want. Yeah, because you could get something like Depeche Mode, which is a much harder kind of synth pop. When they do go into synth pop, sometimes it's probably more industrial. It's very much darker. So yeah, not very good to say just synth pop, is it? But I can't give you anything better. Yeah, that's just the general term. Like, a dog would be a canine, right? There are plenty of canines out there. But they all have to have something in common to be a canine, and that just seems to be the lowest common denominator. Yeah. Oops, I've been writing in my notes this whole time. That's not good. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna talk to you today about some topics that I've been meaning to talk about. They were notes that I wrote probably weeks, months. Oh, this is a tough shot. Probably weeks or months ago, and then added to over time. Yep, figured. But I wanted to talk about fear. Yeah, thus the title Fear and Loathing. That's not just a reference to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, or any of Hunter S. Thompson's works, like Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail. I guarantee a lot more people have read or watched Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas than they have read Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail. I haven't even read all of Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail. I really should, though, shouldn't I? Fake Hunter S. Thompson fan. That's fine. I don't need to be a real one. Not in the VTuber sphere. Hard to search VTubers. Um, that's interesting. I've never experienced that. If, if you don't get recommended VTubers until you search something VTuber related, was that my experience? I don't know. I don't think it was. Back before there were EN VTubers, back before the era of Hololive Myth, I was recommended clips from YouTube from the Minecraft JP Hololive girls, right? I don't know if the algorithms changed much in... Oh wow, it's been like 3 years, hasn't it? Yeah, it's been about 3 years. I don't know if anything's changed much. Oh, that's a bad shot too. But if it has, then that would be a very interesting case. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe, maybe you have your recommendations turned off or had them turned off, and YouTube has just been sneakily turning them back on in the background. Could be. Could be. Like, I have all of my recommendations turned... Oh, that was awful. Leave our house now? What do you mean? What do you mean that change? Oh, right. Uh-huh, uh-huh. 2018 into 2019, I gotcha. Yeah, we can leave our houses now. That thing. Hyde remembers that thing. Does not remember that thing at all. Yeah, it is very much a different time, isn't it? Like, before everyone was locked away and, unable to leave. I was actually encouraged by my, place of living to get outside a few times, right? So maybe I'm in the minority here. It wasn't to go outside in public or anything. It was to, go outside in unpopulated ways, right? There were some states which recommended that. And I think that was probably for the best. It kept me more sane than most people. Me of all people more sane. The memory hole. I think that could just be my brain, you know? Like, you could name my brain the memory hole. And as long as I'm not thinking about something, it is forgotten. Like, there's no object permanence in my brain. I never got past that as a kid. Once the memory is not actively thought about, it stops existing until it is brought back up. I'm sure it exists there somewhere. We almost got 2 there. That would have been a great trick shot. This is gonna be tough. I don't think there's any way that I can get this into the zone hole. I'm not even sure if we can... Maybe if we hit it there, we'll get it in the long pocket there. Nope. Wait. We might believe it. No, okay. Hi, Diana. Hi, Diana. Nice to see you. I do feel bad that you have to do dishes, but I'm glad that I am in the background if I am. Yeah. You know, I actually like doing dishes. Dishes are one of the household chores that I enjoy the most. I hate cleaning floors. I know what you're thinking. Cleaning floors sounds like it's easy. You just get a mop. Nice trick shot. And you mop, right? Or you sweep. It's not that hard to clean a floor. But you're wrong. I assure you, you are very wrong. Cleaning floors properly, it's not just one and done, right? There are some things that just can't be cleaned once. There are some things that you can't sweep up, like tiny little cat hairs. My broom does not get tiny little cat hairs. I know there are like charged brooms or charged mops where they have an an electrostatic charge so that the little hairs get picked up. And that's really what I need, but I don't have one. Maybe I'll get one. and maybe that would make my life easier. But cat hair is just one of the issues. Dishes are a part of eating? Yes. um, they are essential, aren't they? Like, I've known people who just refuse to use dishes. or they just use one dish. They'll eat out of, like, the pan that they make food in. And I'm like, maybe not. Maybe not do that. You're gonna scratch your pot. And they don't seem to care. And it seems to work for them. But I don't know. I don't know. You like vacuuming? If it were vacuuming over mopping, I would definitely take vacuuming. I don't... Here's the thing. My cat has such fine cat hair that the vacuum does not easily pick it up, even from vacuuming. I think it might have like a static charge in some of the carpet, but I'm not even just talking about the carpet. I mean on the floor itself. Like there's something that makes it stick to the ground. I am. I don't regret getting my cat, but I do wonder sometimes if I would save maybe 30 minutes to an hour per day just not messing with cat hair. Like, if I don't have to go out, I am covered in cat hair. Everything is covered in cat hair. I'm not that bad, luckily. I'm glad, I'm glad. But no, when I used to be very, very particular about cleaning floors, I would take a rag, like a dish towel type rag. I would soak it in warm soapy water, and then I would scrub the floors with that rag. That was how I used to clean things properly, the floor. And if you know anything about floors, they're on the ground. And what else goes on the ground? Hopefully feet. If you have feet, hopefully feet. Hopefully you're not walking on your hands everywhere, right? So, feet get notoriously dirty, and then you have to clean the floors almost daily if you're particular about them. And I was for the longest time. I didn't like seeing any dirt on the ground, on the floor. So I would always be scrubbing with a little rag to make sure I got all of the dirt, all of the hair, all of the grossness off of the floors. So maybe that's why I hate washing floors so much. But I would pretty much rather do anything but washing floors. Laundry, vacuuming, dishes, any of it is better. Nowadays, I'm much less particular about... That's a bad shot. About floors, thankfully. I think the Swiffer mops are probably your best bet for that kind of thing. You know, most of the Swiffer mops, they come with attachments that you can take the little pad off and clean them. You can just put a rag on those and scrub the floors like that. It saves your back a lot of effort. Also saves you effort on buying those Swiffer pads, which cost way too much for what they are. You would not like my kitchen floor right now? Whoops. Isn't it always the kitchen? I don't know what it is about kitchens, but they seem to have the most dirt. Like, I guess they have the most foot traffic. You're in and out of the kitchen every day, multiple times per day. We use a steam mop. Steam mops are nice. Don't get me wrong. They're great for stuck on things like mud. Mud and stains. But I don't know. If you're cleaning tile, I think that's probably your best bet for cleaning tile, yeah. You get really in between the tiles. Make sure you get that grime up out of the contours where they meet. Yeah. I was not expecting to be talking about, like, scrubbing floors, but here we are, talking about scrubbing floors, doing dishes. Oh, you know what I hate about doing dishes? That was a bad shot. When I was growing up, I had a big family, right? And we all did chores. Like, we alternated chores, as families often do. And, I always hated when my siblings would do the dishes because they did this really awful thing. Like, there is a container of soapy water in the sink, right? And whenever there was a container of soapy water, they would put their dishes directly into the soapy water. Yeah, yeah. They didn't rinse them. All of the food particles would end up in the soapy water. So they would be washing the dishes with soapy water with dissolved fats, solids, disgusting stuff in it. You're not really cleaning your dishes that way. What you really ought to do, and what I always did, because it is much cleaner this way, is I would rinse them like a civilized person. Icky. Very icky. Yes. Yes. The dishwater after I was done doing the dishes was almost perfectly clear. There were soap suds and everything. But the dishes after one of them would do the dishes? No. It was gross. It was milky. Like, oh, no. That would be on the dishes. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. So that might have contributed to why I enjoy dishes, or doing the dishes as a chore, because I would always wash them again anyway. I was very particular. I don't know if that's coming in clear or not. A couple obsessive compulsive tendencies, I think. I have gotten better. I have. Trust me, I have. I have gotten better. But for the longest time, yeah, I was very particular. And that was probably annoying for people. But they had clean dishes at least. The floors were clean. And even now, even if I have softened up on it, they're still clean. Yeah. Everything must be clean. It must be clean. That was a bad shot. Right. So I was going to talk about fear today, right? Before I got tangented. Did Jekyll just sneak in for a moment? I don't know what you're talking about, Diana. I don't know at all. Jekyll likes to come out every now and then, even when I don't invite him out. But that's fine, right? Jekyll is also a part of me. Yes, a part of me. Okay, so we were talking about fear. A lot of people think that fear is an irrational thing. I disagree. I think fears are perfectly rational things, right? Like, in my definition of rational, rational is anything that prolongs the life of an animal or the propagation of the animal's genetics. That's rational. That's what the biological machine is meant to do, right? Further the species, as it were. So anything that doesn't do that would be irrational. Anything that does do that would be perfectly rational. And fear, more often than not, is rational, because it is going to prolong the life of the individual organisms, right? Yeah. When people say that fears are irrational, I think what they really mean is that fears are impractical, right? Like, let's consider a fear of heights. A fear of heights would be an impractical fear, but it's not an irrational one. Say you're on the edge of a cliff, right? It's very frightening because you could fall over, and then you would, not be able to prolong your living or propagate your species. So both of those would be contributing to irrational, or rather, rational thoughts. Yeah. So the fears themselves are rational. They're just very impractical because 9 out of 10 times, you're not going to fall over the edge of that cliff. But, there is that one time where you will fall over that cliff. So be careful. uh, it's impractical 9 out of 10 times, but it's very, very, very practical 1 out of 10 times. Yeah. Now, If you think about it, most fears are like that, right? There is a difference between fears and other things. Maybe we should talk about that too. Yeah. Okay. So, as I see it, uh, fears are very specific things, right? There are phobias. The object of fear is often directly known. Like it's pinpointable. You could put your finger on it. There is a clear trigger for that emotional response. um, yeah, that's what a fear is. There is something known to be afraid of, like a spider, like heights, like cheesecloth, if you don't like holes. What about hyper-specific fears regarding random things? Um, hmm. Hyper-specific fears. I don't really know. Like a fear of holes? Yeah, like phobias? Like an irrational fear? Kai, Kai. Well, this fits into the topic we were just discussing on irrational fears, doesn't it? Welcome to the party, Kai. Good to see you. Another great streamer over on Twitch.tv. He used to be a YouTube streamer too, but I won't hold it against him. I won't hold it against you, Kai. Anyway, yeah, there are fears which seem less likely to pertain to the survival of the self or the species. Would I call them irrational? No, I don't think so. I think there might be some kind of major impracticality to such things. Like a fear of holes might be related to a fear of parasitic infections, for example. Because a lot of parasites cause holes in the skin. So it might be a matter of an overactive imagination. It is really, truly, practically fearing something, but in an impractical way, to an impractical extent, right? Finally here, been way too long. uh, you never have to be here, Kai. You're always welcome, and I always appreciate anyone who shows up. But if you have better things to do, or if I just stream way outside of your active hours, as I often do, I absolutely understand. Especially if you have somewhere else to be. One day I will return, YouTube is way cooler. I wouldn't blame you if you did. But like we were discussing that earlier too. YouTube does have some benefits to it. Yeah. You can experiment a lot more easily on YouTube because of the more myriad ways of presenting content, like YouTube Shorts or videos or streaming. Yeah, they even have vertical streaming now. I've done a couple of those for you eagle-eyed viewers out there. None of them with talking yet. Okay, so fear can manifest in nearly anything. Yes. Fear of cheesecloth. What do you say about that? Well, a fear of cheesecloth could be any number of things, like what you're afraid of with that cheesecloth. Kai the Twitcher. In most cases, I assume that a fear of cheesecloth would be a fear of holes, right? And we just discussed why I think a fear of holes would be potentially practical. Rather potentially rational. Yeah, because you don't like the holes because they might make you remember parasitic infections, which would be very impractical, but the brain does strange things like that all the time. It makes associations it probably shouldn't, that are very impractical for a lot of people. I know, that's practically my life. My brain makes those associations all the time. And they're not always right. They're not always good associations. But that doesn't mean they're wrong. There are other kinds of fears, though. Yeah. The most impractical kind of fear, or maybe it is the most practical, maybe it is the most rational kind of fear, is something that I would call dread. Dread is unease. It's unknown. It's the suffocating, surrounding feeling of something not being right. Yeah. I think dread might be an evolutionary response to something that isn't right in your environment, but you can't quite pick up on it. Like you can't put your finger on it like you could with a fear of spiders and seeing a spider. You don't know what's quite wrong, yeah. But it is very real, and you can sense it. I've only felt dread once in my life. I am an avid outdoorsman. I like to hike, I like to fish. I don't hunt, but I do like the outdoors. Not very strange considering what else I've shared about myself and my studies. I like the outdoors. Yes. That might actually be pretty strange for a VTuber or PNGtuber, but we'll not go into that today. No. Let's just accept that it's true. This is gonna be a tough shot. Gonna have to get this on the side so we get the blue one, too. Nope. Bad shot. So I've only felt dread once. Despite hiking pretty much my whole life, I've only felt dread once in nature. Nowhere else. Once in nature. I've stumbled across bears. I've stumbled across... This is funny. I was once scared by a flock of wild turkeys. They were running through the forest. It sounds like so many horses running through dry leaves. But then you look over and you just see it's a flock of 10 turkeys. Running like the tiny little dinosaurs they are. It was kind of cute after the fact. But I didn't feel dread. That was fear. Yeah. Because I was afraid of the noise. So let me tell you the story about when I felt dread. Doesn't that sound fun? Yeah. So I was going on a fishing expedition, as I often do. Do they chase you like geese? Only if you get in their way. Like, most people don't know this, but turkeys can actually fly over short distances. They'll much rather jump over you than they will chase you. Now, if you do mess with them, like any other animal, corner them, they will probably fight back. And they have sharp talons, so I do not recommend it. It's like emus over in your neck of the woods, right, Kai? You don't want to fight a war against emus, do you? I'd say the same for turkeys. Yeah, had to move to Twitch to chase the hype of... Yeah, international Twitch superstar. Right, okay. Dread. So I was on a fishing expedition. I was going to a new fishing hole that I had just learned about. Getting there was a bit of a hike. I had to go up all of these back roads. Do not bring up the emu. Yeah, okay, fair. I won't. No more talk of emus. Only drop bears, right? And how your mailmen ride on kangaroos, where they store the mail in the kangaroo pouches where the joeys are? Yeah. You know, I heard that Australians don't suckle milk when they're young. They suckle fosters out of didgeridoos. Is that true, Kai? Is that true? All true? That's a didgeridoo, isn't it? I do love Australia, right? Like, not just real Australia, but the mythos of Australia. The history of Australia. I do love it. I am sorry. I do not mean to be offensive to Australians. I just think it's a very colorful mythos. No, Foster's is an export for Americans. I've never actually had Foster's. I would believe it, though. It does look like a pale ale, so that would make sense to me. Most of the world does not like pale ales, but America, it's pretty much all they drink. I don't like beer in general, if I'm being honest with you. I'd rather have a stout if I have to have any kind of beer. I was telling a story about something, wasn't I? Yeah. Right, here. So I went up all of these dirt roads, about 10 miles off the highway. It was not an easy place to find. It was a hunting camp, and there was a big barn, very dilapidated, and I parked at the edge of the barn where it said, "Park here, walk-in fishing only." It was another, probably half a mile. Oh, I don't know how many kilometers that is. Probably like quarter kilometer, I don't know. I'm not doing the math for you. Yeah. So it was about half a mile of hiking towards the water from the dilapidated barn that looked like it was out of Deliverance. That's a movie reference I don't know if any of you will get. Probably some of you. And when I got there, the river, well, it was a creek. Do you know what a creek is? It's when your bone pops and creaks. A mile is 1.6 kilometers. Well, there you go. Just a quarter or like a half of that. Yeah, so 0.8 kilometers. That was how far the water was away from the barn. And I had to walk that with all of my fishing gear. And then after that, I had to walk around this snaking creek. And about another, yeah, we'll say another, well, it was probably 2 kilometers down the creek section. So if you're following the creek itself, 2 kilometers of walking, not necessarily 2 kilometers away from where I parked. Yeah, relative distance versus absolute. There was this Y intersection of the creek with another tributary in the waterway. Yeah, something like that. It was full of log jams. It wasn't like beaver dams, it was just fallen trees. It was very eerie, in a way. At the edge of that, on my side of the bank, was a very clear, very empty pine grove kind of thing. If you've never been into a forest, there are trees, right? And not all trees grow in the same... Like, it's not like all the trees are growing interspersed. They typically have their own little clusters, right? It has to do with forest succession, which would be the way that organisms... This is a really bad shot. Precede one another in the environment of the forest. So, after a brush fire, for example, you would get thorny bushes growing. Then you would get trees growing, killing off the thorny bushes because of no sunlight. Things like that. Forest succession is a thing. So you get clusters of the same type of tree, not so much interspersed. Yeah, trees in a forest, holy crap. Yeah, I know, it's shocking, but it's true. So, this pine grove was particularly open for the forest I was walking through, because this forest was an old-growth forest. There were a lot of hardwoods that were probably 100, maybe 200 years old, and I was walking along the bank of the creek because that was the easiest way to do it, until I saw this pine grove. And I don't know what it was, but as I was walking through during the bright, like, mid-afternoon that I got there, it was okay, but there was something off about it. There was something very off about it. I don't know if it was the openness of it. Like, you walk out of this thicket where you can't see ahead of you for 5 feet, and you see this clearing, because if you've ever seen tall pine trees, they have really long branches, and they tend to be further up, and they kind of alternate so that they create a lot of open area, yeah, where they are. You can't really fit too many of them together. They're not too compact, as it were. That's why they make great Christmas trees, right? Yeah. So I walked past that. I fished another probably, I don't know, 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers. And by that time, it was getting dark in the forest, so I decided to walk back. And as I got back to that Y intersection with the pine groves, I got to the edge of the clearing of the pine grove. So I was still in the thicker more hardwood section, looking into this pine grove, and the hair stood up on the back of my neck. I felt a chill go down my spine. I started salivating, strangest thing of all, and I had to swallow reflexively. And just thinking about it, I have to swallow again. It's very strange how just remembering it gives me the chills, as it were. But it was very much that kind of situation. And I realized the only thing I was hearing was the sound of my own heartbeat thumping in my chest. Now, if you've ever been outdoors, you know in nature, it is never silent in nature. You'll always hear birds, you'll always hear insects, you'll always hear something. It is never dead quiet. With one exception, when there is a predator nearby. You'll often hear stories about that, right? Like getting stalked by mountain lions, and everything in the area goes dead quiet, and the only thing you hear is your own breathing or your own heartbeat beating in your ears. I can't capture the feeling of dread that I was experiencing that day. I can't communicate it to you. There's no possible way. You have to feel it yourself. So, I realized it was getting darker and darker by the minute. And I was still, what, a kilometer or two away from my car? From where I was at the Pines? Yeah, from where I was at the Pines, it was probably a kilometer or two. Just take your word for it, my man. You don't have to. If you've ever felt dread, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. It could be dread about anything, right? The dread is universal. Good shot. So, I decided I had to do something to get out of there. So I crept along the outer edge of the clearing. I did not want to go through the clearing itself. And let me tell you why you don't want to go out into the clearing itself. It's because it's a big open space. You are completely exposed when you're in an open clearing like that. If there were a mountain lion stalking you, it would be able to get you from anywhere. It could be literally anywhere. But if you keep the forest to one side of you, you're better off, just slightly, because it narrows down how many different points or lines of attack a mountain lion or something could get you from. So yeah, if you ever feel that in nature, avoid the big open spaces. So I was there, in my fishing gear, which probably weighed, I don't know, 20 pounds, carrying my fishing rod, which was probably 6 feet long. So, 6 feet of fishing rod held upwards. Snags on a lot of things, right? Because it has fishing line. It will snag on just about anything. But I didn't care. At that point, I just had to get out of there. I literally had to get out of there. So I ran. I ran along the edge of the clearing. I didn't even follow the stream. I just ran with dead reckoning towards the absolute location of my car. And I didn't know with absolute certainty that I was going towards my car. I just had a vague feeling that I was, right? Like, have you ever experienced dead reckoning? You take out any kind of contextual clues that could tell you which direction you're facing. You take out the sun, you take out everything else, and you just say, that way is north, that way is south, that way is east or west. Yeah, sometimes you can do that. You can know it's over there. Whatever I'm looking for is to the left of me at like 3... Yeah, well, that wouldn't be the left. At like 11 o'clock. And that would be dead reckoning. But I did that, and I had no idea if I was even heading towards my car, for sure. Because, again, this was the first time I'd ever fished in this area. Ah, that was a bad shot. That was a terrible shot. Definitely felt the whole, I gotta get out of here. Yes, that is dread. Favorite dread is the variety that tends to come at 3 AM. Yes, existential dread. I feel you there. I do. Existential dread, yeah. Not so yay. We will get there. Yeah. Suffice to say, I made it back alive. I don't know if anything was chasing me or stalking me. Maybe. Maybe I avoided my untimely end. I'd like to think I did. But that was the only time I ever felt actual dread. Even in nature, after stumbling upon bears. Like, bears will leave you alone for the most part. As long as you don't bother them or get between them and their cubs or anything. Now let's talk about existential dread, because that is slightly different, isn't it? Like, it isn't really a dread of an unknown. You do know what about existence is, well, is it an unknown? Like, you're dreading something about existence, or existing properly, right? So maybe you could say that's a fear, because you fear the unknowns of existence. But then again, there are unknowns there, so maybe it is a dread. It's not specific. Maybe it's like the bridge between fear and dread itself. There is something specific and unspecific about it. I do know existential dread is not great. I think most people probably experience it at some point in their lives, and they have to wonder what exactly they're afraid of about existence, I think. What is keeping them up at night? And for everyone, I think it's something slightly different, but I think we all experience it. So I don't know if it's one thing. Like, I don't know if I would call existential dread... Like, not all existential dreads are the same in their constitution, as it were. I think that some existential dreads are based on very tangible things, like midlife crises. They're based on things like not achieving goals that you wanted to, or just realizing that, like me, you're getting older. I'm getting older. Oh, it hurts. Oh, it hurts. And you won't be able to do things as well as you used to be able to. I don't know. Some of them are tangible, though, and you could put your finger on them and say, that is what I'm dreading about my existence right now. And then there are other ones which are just vague, like, what's the purpose of life? What's the meaning other than 42? You know? For me, always at night. Yeah, oh. I am sorry about your late cat. Yeah, I do think that, other life forms seem to help us with our own existence, right? Like, I hate to call them distractions, but I think that's kind of what they are. Like, the only way to get rid of existential dread is to not think about it. But by which I mean the kind that we don't really know, right? So if there's not a tangible thing to point your finger at for your existential dread, then the only way to actually deal with that existential dread is to just not think about it, because you really don't know what's causing it. How could you do anything about it? You can't. So a nice cat, or another person, or anything at all, say a hobby, I think that's how you deal with existential dread. You gotta occupy the mind, right? You gotta do something that makes your mind not so much quieter. Like, I think you can drown it out with even louder things. It's a pet theory of mine that the human mind itself, you can't really get rid of irrational fears, as people colloquially call them. No, I don't think they're irrational, but I will use the term as people would if you have an irrational dread or something that doesn't have any kind of known trigger. You can't really get rid of that rationally. You can't rationalize your way out of it. You can't logic your way out of a problem like that. There is no solution, and you will feel it regardless of whether you want to or not, even if you know it's not right to feel it, or that it's not helpful to feel it. It's just gonna happen. So you gotta drown that out, I think, with even more irrationality. You gotta find yourself a pet cat, distract yourself. Uh, I don't know, get a new hobby, something like that. Your hands get busy, your mind stops thinking about whatever you don't want to think about. And I know a lot of people don't like that. They don't like the idea of just like distracting themselves. But I think it's healthy, right? I know a lot of people who would probably feel guilty about that kind of thing. But I think it is essential to have that kind of distraction in life. And I think that's why a lot of people get into hobbies with high degrees of escapism. Things like gaming or reading. Like, I think that might be why isekai is such a popular genre of light novel in places like Japan. Even me, like, I read a lot of isekai trash, right? And it wasn't really so much for the escapism of it, but I can understand why people would have it for escapism, right? Yeah. um, with that in mind, hard to do when trying to sleep, yes. I'll tell you a little bit about my struggles sleeping, because I think they're very relatable, right? um, I've had a lot of struggles sleeping all my life. It's why I gave my model such dark eye bags to begin with. Those are real, by the way. I have those in real life, and I have had them since I was a kid. I have had sleep troubles since I was born. That's not an exaggeration, that's the truth. I have had trouble sleeping, or troubles related to sleep, since I was a kid, including sleep apnea, where I would just stop breathing and legally die for a little bit until they revived me. Um, or I would have somnambulism, which would be sleepwalking, and specifically sleepwalking. I did also sleep talk, have entire conversations. Like, there was something wrong with my sleep cycles, where my body and my mind were just not shutting off properly, or were shutting off too much. So I guess that's improper in another way. Breathing's for suckers? Yeah. Yeah, you can live without breathing for about 10 minutes. Permanent eye bags. Yeah, I don't think they're that bad though, right? Like, they can be quite charming on a good model like mine. Yeah, I don't think they're bad. Like, I know a lot of people probably feel self-conscious about eye bags. I did for a while, even as a kid. I was like, huh, these other kids don't have these. Why do I look like I'm dying? um, yeah. But I think they can be dignified, in a sense, right? Yeah. Like, sure, you're gonna get people asking if you got enough sleep last night, and then you're gonna have to tell them, no, no, I was up all night, thinking about existence, dreaming about zombies eating me. True story. I had a lot of nightmares about zombies, because I was traumatized as a kid, watching Night of the Living Dead. My father decided it was a great idea to let me watch that as a 5 or 6-year-old. Way too early for Night of the Living Dead, I think. Sleep apnea. I love Minecraft. Oh, or CPAP. CPAP. Yeah, that was a bit small. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You gotta get distilled water for CPAP machines. Ah, yes. Yes, those are a pain. I feel you there. Luckily, I do not need one of those anymore. I did at one point. I do not. Other people in my family actually have to still use theirs, but I do not. I grew out of that, thankfully. I do not have to clean them. I do not have to replace hoses or face masks. I do not have to sleep on my back. Well, I do now, because if I sleep on my shoulder, I lose the ability to use my arm for the week. Gotta scoot. Feels really good to finally make it. Thank you for coming, Kai. It was great to see you. Never feel bad about having to leave or not being able to make it. It's great to see you, though. I hope you have a good rest of the night. See you around, Kai. Yeah. I do not miss cleaning CPAP machines or their parts, with, which needed like distilled water. You know the worst thing about CPAP machines? Like if you're using one and the power goes out, you don't have anything with pressure anymore. You're just breathing into a vacuum. That is terrifying. I hate it. Yeah, that's a great way to not get good sleep, right? To just breathe into a vacuum. Yeah, yeah. That's only something that someone who has a CPAP machine or has used one will ever experience. A true personal hell. Like sleep paralysis? I think there's one better. Sleep not breathing ever. Rain out? Mm-hmm. Oh, so many fun things. Ah. Okay, that's probably enough complaining. Woke up choking a few times. Yes. It is awful, isn't it? Like, this is supposed to help you sleep and improve sleep quality. And most nights it does. Most nights it does. But, again, like that 1 out of 10 times, you will wake up experiencing something so much worse that you would maybe even wish you weren't using it in the first place. So like I said, I am very grateful and appreciative that I grew out of the need for one. Yeah. Okay. We're gonna change topics. We're gonna talk about... Oh wow, we've already been going on for an hour? We'll talk a bit longer, yeah. I wanted to talk about scientific paradigms today. I wanted to talk about specifically gravity. Like, we all know what gravity is, right? It's a force of nature, as defined by modern science. And if you remember forces of nature, you have things like the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, gravity, and what's the other one? Electrostatics? Something like that. I don't remember. I'm not a physicist. I just use physics in my daily life. But the neat thing is we cannot observe gravity directly, by which I mean we cannot sense it directly. We can apparently observe, like, gravitational waves as they pass through space, but even that's indirectly as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. We are observing not gravity itself, but the effects of gravity. And we can all do this, right? If you drop something, it will plummet towards the mass of the Earth, assuming that there isn't a greater mass in an opposite direction, and with greater gravitational force, specifically. Like, if there were a moon crashing into the planet, and you were right between the moon and the Earth would still win out. But if you were closer to the moon, and you dropped something, it might go up towards the moon, right? So, yeah. You can observe gravity, theoretically. But it's only the effects of gravity. And yet we named this force based on only the observation of the effects. Isn't that ridiculous? I don't know if I believe that gravity exists. Yeah, think about that. Maybe gravity isn't actually what we think it is. Maybe objectively speaking, gravity is not one force, but multiple forces. We'd have no way of knowing objectively, because we have a scientific paradigm that attributes all of these effects to one force. And that's true of, say, macro gravity, like cosmic gravity. So when one planetary or one cosmic body passes by another and affects the rotation of another, the wobble, the tilt, the precision, yeah, when that happens, like that's another effect of gravity. It is very similar to, but not the same as, when you drop something and it plummets towards the Earth. Yeah, or when you plummet towards the Earth, when you fall. They seem like the same thing, or they seem like the same forces. Ooh, shiny stage. I haven't seen this in a while. They seem like the same thing, but are they? I don't know. And we really can't say they are, until we assert that they are. So that model is kind of tautological. We named it gravity, but it might not even be the same thing. And this goes back to scientific paradigms, right? I don't know if any of you have studied the sociology of science, or read Thomas Kuhn's book on scientific paradigms, but it is a kind of mind-opener. What a range of topics tonight: cleaning, beer, dread, sleep issues, and CPAP and gravity conspiracies. It's not a conspiracy. Like, I just want to make it very clear. As far as science goes, gravity exists because that's the model we have. That is the scientific paradigm. Gravity exists because we say it does. Just like electrostatic forces exist because we say they do, based on the effects that we observe. Raise his hand. I've read Kuhn. Very good. Very good. Then you'll understand exactly where I'm coming from. Kuhn used the example of phlogiston, right? The phlogiston theory of combustion. Fascinating theory. All combustible things contain phlogiston, the combustible material. I don't remember if he used the word particle, but it wouldn't surprise me. Back then, particle would just mean component. Yeah, back when phlogiston theory was a thing in like the 1800s, I think. Yeah. And you could make scientific predictions based on the scientific then model of phlogiston. You could even call it a theory of phlogiston in the scientific sense, because you could make accurate predictions based on it. Let me give you an example. There are some things which can contain more phlogiston than others, right? And you can do this, or you can tell this, because some things are more flammable than others, right? So, if you try to burn wood, it will burn very well, until there's very little left. If you try to burn metal, it will not burn so well. Much of it will be left over. So, using this theory, we could say, based on these models, wood has a higher degree of phlogiston than metal. Then we could make predictions based on these models. So something made of wood would have more phlogiston than something made of metal. And we can prove that to be true. If we take something like a piece of paper, which is made from wood, it contains the same, as far as we know, phlogiston content. We can try and burn it, and we will find that it burns until there is very little left. Now, if we did the same for an iron nail, and we tried to burn it, it would not burn easily. Much of it will be left over, with normal fire. You might not even burn any of it, as far as you can tell with your instruments. Therefore, we could say, conclusively, that wood and paper and products made of things with phlogiston have more phlogiston than other things. You see how that works? It's a valid scientific model. It can be backed up with observable facts about phenomenon using scientifically accurate and rigorous testing, standardized testing. Unfortunately, it does not fit our current models. Why? Even humans contain it. Yes, we do. Although humans are very tough to burn. You gotta remember, humans are 72 to 75% water by mass. So we are very tough to burn, but it is possible to do so. I should probably not talk much about that. YouTube, please do not mind the burning bodies talk. Thank you. Anyway, nowadays, that phlogiston theory has been replaced by a more encompassing scientific paradigm that we would call, I guess, organic chemistry to some extent, and specifically redox reactions. That would be reduction oxidative reactions, or reduction oxidation reactions, depending on where you learned it. Basically, something is reduced and something is oxidized. So that kind of gives you the clues of why we replace the scientific paradigm of phlogiston with redox. It has very much to do with trying to unify phlogiston theory with something like atomic or molecular theory, which came about later. So once we discovered, or once we proposed and accepted the paradigm of molecules and atoms, we got into this whole try to unify everything stage of science. And essentially, we just did. Instead of containing more phlogiston, we assume, or based on other models, which are more consistent with other models, we create this new model that says it burns because there is carbon in the cellulose of the paper and the wood, which are oxidized in the presence of oxygen, which would be combusting, yeah. And you can say metal does not have that combustible carbon, or that, you know, reducible carbon. Isn't that fascinating? But there's nothing to say that it had to be that way. Like, that's just a model we picked, and it's a model that's consistent with other models in physics, or in this case, chemistry. And if you've read Kuhn's, then you know the grand unified theory is really what we were trying to go after, isn't it? I just think it's fascinating that people don't even think about this kind of thing when they think about science. I know a lot of scientists don't even think about this kind of thing. When I was studying this in my college years, I would ask a lot of professors, and I was in the science field, yeah. So I would ask a lot of my professors at the time what they thought about scientific paradigms and epistemology, specifically the epistemology of science. And a lot of them just never thought about it. Like, they were aware vaguely of Kuhn's and the sociology of science, but they never actually thought about it. Yeah. I think that's fascinating when a lot of scientists just aren't aware of the possibilities, you know? Like, in my view, scientists should probably understand this kind of thing, because it really gives you a different feel for what science is. Science is not objective truth. We don't even have any way of proving that it is. We have to assume that there is some kind of correlation to an observable and objective reality. If we don't have that, then it's all just theoretical models based on more theoretical models. And that's what a paradigm is. Theoretical models based on theoretical models based on, at best, subjective experiences, intersubjective experiences. So subjective experiences that can be shared and related between people. That's what the repeatability thing's all about. And that leads to a lot of scientific distrust due to that misunderstanding. Yes, I agree. It also leads to a lot of scientific trust that it doesn't deserve. Like, don't get me wrong. As far as science is concerned, I am a pragmatist. I think that science is one of the best pragmatic ways of going about things, because it's standardized. And standardized is better than chaos, as far as I can tell. There seems to be a correlation between conducting science and getting practical results. Now, that might not necessarily be true, because again, we can't objectively test that, and we can't objectively say that it's true. It is a model, and it has predictive capabilities, and that might be more or less practical or pragmatic for us. In many cases, it happens that it is more pragmatic than not. And that's good when it happens, and it usually does because of standardization. But I think any kind of standardization could be as good if not better, than science. This brings to mind the stories behind the theory of plate tect. Oh yes, yes. Ah, that is my most favorite example of scientific paradigms. Yes, being what I am and what I studied. I'll discuss that a little bit before I go, but then I will be leaving. So, for those who don't know, before plate tectonics was an accepted theory by the wider array of scientists in the world, and this was in 1965, I think, before it got adopted. So before 1965, there were really no exception, or yeah, there were really no textbooks teaching plate tectonics. um, Basically, we had all of these phenomena, which we tried to explain away with things like land bridges. Some of you may have been taught about land bridges, and some of them may have actually existed between continents, and they got covered by water because of rising sea levels or whatever. Some of them may have existed. I won't say they won't, or I won't say they didn't, but in most cases, that was not how it worked, or that's not how it looks like it worked. I have to be very clear here. Plate tectonic model is what I've been taught, so I will discuss it as if it's the truth, objectively, but it might not be. It might just be another theoretical paradigm. I will discuss it though, yes. So, one of the major problems that the scientists of that era were facing, the geologists of that era, the paleontologists of that era, was how there were similar megafauna fossils found on different continents, separated by large areas of ocean. It's very unlikely that something like giant sloths would have swam across the ocean from one continent to another. So how do we find fossils of both? Yeah, how do we find fossils of one in two different places that are separated by large oceans? Land bridges was the proposed theory of the time. And in World War II, when submarines were invented, and I think it was sonar, yeah. When sonar was invented, they did a lot of mapping of the ocean floors. And when they mapped the ocean floors, they found banded rocks. I should probably draw this, but it's not banded in the way you think. So it kind of looks like alternating bands of basically the arrangement of the grains were alternating one way versus the other opposite way. And it kind of radiated like, how do you describe this? A fan. Think of a fan, and you have the ribs between the paper, and then you have the paper itself. So it was banded like that from a common point in the middle. And that middle would be the mid-ocean ridge. And these rocks were mid-ocean ridge basalts. So what happened is one scientist who was studying these things proposed plate tectonics. And he proposed that as the mid-ocean ridge pushed more rock out, plates would move. Or there were these rocks on the surface of a more liquid, lower surface of the Earth. So you could think of a plate on a liquid. And if you put something between a plate and then keep adding things, it spreads apart. That's basically what plate tectonics is. Just more than one thing getting split. And the mid-ocean ridge is the thing that's generating what pushes the plates apart, basically. That was the gist of it, in a very simplified way. I could discuss that for hours, but I won't. I will not. And this was observable. This phenomenon was observable at any mid-ocean ridge, in any ocean, at any point. And you could even see historical or geological examples of the same kind of patterns of alternating rock. Yeah, or alternating arrangement in rocks. And I won't tell you why they alternate. It has to do with magnetics. I don't think you care. I won't mind if you do. Pole shifts very quickly. Polar shifts, they happen. So the North and South Pole swap. Like, a lot of people don't realize this, but the North and South Pole are actually moving. There is a geological North Pole, and then there is a geographical North Pole. The geological North Pole would be the center of the, well, the north end of the dipolar Earth, as it were. And that point shifts over time until it swaps with the South Pole. And that magnetic sphere, the magnetosphere, as it's called on Earth, arranges the grains, which are ferric in nature, or ferrous, the iron-rich rocks, yeah, as they cool. So that's why they were banded, and you can actually tell over time based on that banding. Yeah, the polar shifts are neat, and they were useful for recognizing that the rocks themselves were being moved. Without that, I don't think we would have gotten plate tectonics nearly as quickly as we did. Yeah. Great model. Great model. But it took nearly 20 years of fighting with the old guard of scientists who were arguing for land bridges before that even got into the science textbooks. It's like how when scientists were trying to argue for the bolide impact as the extinction trigger for dinosaurs and other life forms during the KT boundary, or the KT extinction. It's still not exactly clear if that was the actual trigger of the extinction of the dinosaurs and other things. Like, it's definitely a contributing factor, and it probably is the major. It probably is the major one. But it might not be the only one. There is also volcanic outgassing that was probably poisoning them at the same time. So there were probably more factors. Now, I had a lot of fun, but I think we're gonna end it here, you know? Didn't the main person who pioneered plate tectonics die before the theory was overall accepted? I'm not sure if he did die. What was that, Wagner? I don't remember. Bad geologist. He can't remember the name of the scientist. I think it was something with a W. I don't know if he died. He might have. He was pretty old, I think. Yeah, I don't know. Like, if you say he died, he probably did. That would be very tragic, but it wouldn't be unheard of. A lot of scientists die before their theories get accepted. It's a rarity when, well, maybe it isn't. But it is a rarity when things get accepted quickly in science, right? Science is very slow to change paradigms. That said, long time since I learned this. Me too. I am pulling this out of the memory hole, as I call my brain now. So do forgive me if I get things a little bit wrong. I gave you mostly the right things. Mostly the facts. I wasn't really planning on talking about plate tectonics. Mostly because I'll look bad if I get it wrong, right? Like, having studied geology, I should understand plate tectonics. But memory doesn't work that way sometimes. I used to understand it fairly well. I used to be able to talk about mid-ocean ridge basalts and the different varieties of them. Because yes, that they are different. There are different kinds. Morb is morb, but it also isn't morb. Morb. That's the acronym for mid-ocean ridge basalt. Anyway, I've got to get going, but I had a lot of fun. This went places I didn't expect it to. I mostly wanted to talk about fear, and yeah, I guess I did want to talk about scientific paradigms. Morbin time. Ah, oh, that hurts. That hurts, Diana. It's Morbin time. If that movie were out, um, when I was in college, that probably would have been a joke that I would have made. Oh, that hurts. Um, had a great time. Thank you all for sharing time with me. Uh, thank you all for being here. I love you all, but I gotta get going. I'll see you all next week. Same time-ish, same place-ish. It was a good time. Good night. Good night. Love you all. See you next time. Hide out.